Leila opened her eyes as sunlight spilled through the bedroom window. She turned to find Taemin awake, gazing at her lovingly. "Good morning," he murmured, pressing a tender kiss to her cheek. She smiled softly. It had always been Taemin's habit to get up early, but since they reunited 2 months ago, he often lingered in bed. As if afraid she might disappear, she understood. It would take time to reassure him that she was here to stay. Snuggling closer, she wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head on his chest. Taemin chuckled. "If you hold me like this, how am I supposed to get up?" Leila playfully pushed him aside and got up to check on their daughter, Nari. In the adjacent room, Nari slept soundly. For the first few weeks, she had refused to sleep without clutching Taemin's hand, but now she slept comfortably on her own. Leila gently woke her and helped her get dressed. By the time they were done, Taemin had made a light breakfast, and they joined him in the dining area. "Good morning, Daddy," Nari called, running to him. Taemin lifted her effortlessly and spun her around. "Good morning, my princess," he said, setting her down with a smile. Leila cherished mornings like this. Taemin had hired a CEO to oversee his company, T&L. When meetings were necessary, he scheduled them strategically, so he had most weekdays free to spend with Leila and Nari. Meanwhile, Leila worked mostly remotely, traveling only once in a while to see clients. As they ate, Taemin's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening before he excused himself. When he returned, his demeanor was tense. Noticing this, Nari asked, "Daddy, are you okay?" Some of his tension eased as he scooped her onto his lap. "Yes, princess, Daddy's fine." She studied him skeptically, sensing she wasn't convinced. He smiled. "I know a new game we can play after breakfast." Nari nodded enthusiastically and returned to her meal, satisfied with the distraction. But Leila wasn't fooled. That evening, after finishing a call with her team in the US, Leila found Taemin standing by the window, lost in thought. She embraced him from behind, resting her head against his back. "Talk to me, Taemin. We promised to be honest with each other." He sighed, turning to take her hand. "My mom's 60th birthday is in 2 weeks. She wants me to come home." Leila studied him. "You don't want to go?" He looked away. "The past few years, I've barely spoken to them. Now that you and Nari are finally settling in, I don't want them causing trouble for you." Leila gave him an affectionate smile. "I'm not the spineless girl I was back then. Besides, it might go better than you think." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked, puzzled. Leila exhaled. "You know, I told you how my parents reacted when they found out I was pregnant with Nari. They were sorry that they had isolated me, to the extent that I thought I had to do it on my own. It took some time, but we finally made up. If your parents are reaching out, then maybe you should give them a chance." He considered her words. "If I go, will you and Nari be all right?" Leila scoffed. "We're not going to disappear, honey. But you don't have to worry. We'll come with you." He searched her face and saw that she was serious. "Thank you," he whispered, wrapping his arms around her. 2 weeks later, they flew to Seoul. Their first stop was Grandma Park's grave, where Taemin laid fresh flowers. He still missed her deeply. Leila had only met her once, but knew she was a kind woman. She wished she'd had the chance to know her better. Arriving at the Park residence, Taemin took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. When Mrs. Park opened the door, she gasped, "Taemin, you actually came!" Then her gaze landed on Leila, who braced herself for hostility. But instead, Mrs. Park stepped forward. "Leila, you're all right." She turned to Taemin. "You finally found her." Leila was stunned, but there was no malice in the woman's tone. Then Mrs. Park noticed Nari and froze. "Is she?" Taemin nodded. "This is our daughter, Nari." "Happy birthday, Granny," Nari said softly. "Daddy said it's your birthday." A sob escaped Mrs. Park as she knelt and pulled Nari into a hug. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Grandma is here. Grandma is sorry." Nari tilted her head in confusion. Leila gently stroked her daughter's hair and explained, "Grandma is sad because she missed your birthdays." Nari brightened. "That's okay, Grandma. I have many more birthdays." Mr. Park had joined them, watching quietly. When Nari spotted him, she smiled. "Are you my grandpa?" A flicker of emotion crossed his face, and he nodded, offering a weak smile. Mrs. Park invited them inside, but dinner was tense, the air thick with unspoken words. Even Nari sensed it, her gaze shifting between her parents and grandparents. When it was time for them to leave, Mrs. Park said, "Can you please stay for just tonight?" Taemin hesitated, but at Leila's gentle nudge, he relented. Later that night, unable to sleep, Leila went downstairs for water. She found Mrs. Park sitting alone in the dimly lit living room. Noticing her, Mrs. Park motioned for her to come sit. "Taemin looks happy," Mrs. Park said. "You know, he never stays here. He only comes to town for business or to visit his grandma's grave. He was a wreck when you left. It hurt so much to see him like that. We were so wrong, Leila. I'm so sorry." Tears slipped down her face. Leila regarded the woman before her and realized that they had both made mistakes. Thinking they knew what was best for Taemin, she reached out, embracing Mrs. Park gently. "It wasn't just your fault. I made mistakes too, but everything's fine now." Mrs. Park nodded, smiling weakly. Leila got her glass of water and returned to bed, slipping beneath the covers beside Taemin and Nari. The warmth of her family lulled her into a peaceful sleep. The next morning, Taemin rose early, as was his habit. As a teenager, he had often retreated to the backyard, finding solace in its quiet expanse. He stepped outside, the crisp morning air greeting him, and saw his father standing under the soft glow of the rising sun. "I knew you'd come here," Mr. Park said, his voice calm but hoarse. Taemin hesitated as a flood of emotions welled up in his chest. He had resented his father for so long, yet standing here now, he couldn't find any words to say. Mr. Park stepped closer, placing a firm but gentle hand on Taemin's shoulder. "Son," he said, "I'm sorry." Taemin stiffened. Not once in all his years had his father apologized to him. Mr. Park continued, "I caused you to be separated from your wife and child for so long, and I'm truly sorry." Before Taemin could react, he found himself pulled into his father's strong hug. Tears welled in his eyes as he realized he couldn't remember the last time his father had hugged him. "It's all right, father," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "It's all right now." Taemin, Leila, and Nari stayed a few more days at the Park family home, and soon, smiles replaced wary glances, laughter filled the air, and Nari, with her infectious joy, effortlessly bridged the gaps between them all. When they finally left, they promised to return whenever they were in town. Months later, the U.S. subsidiary of T&L was finally ready to launch. Taemin, Leila, and Nari traveled to the States for the opening ceremony. Their first stop was Leila's parents' home. This meeting was easier. Leila had already mended ties with them, and they had played a large role in raising Nari. More importantly, they had already come to terms with meeting Taemin. When they arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Faraji opened the door with warm smiles. Nari excitedly rushed into their embrace. Inside, as they sat down for dinner, Taemin could feel the tension in the air. The familiar expressions of guilt mirrored what he had seen on his own parents' faces. He decided to make it easy for them. "Thank you," he said, "for being there for Leila and Nari all these years." Mrs. Faraji exhaled, her gaze softening. "Leila is our daughter. Nari is our grandchild. It was the least we could do. Besides, if we hadn't been so stubborn back then, maybe—" Taemin shook his head gently, stopping her. "It's all right. We're together now, and that's all that matters." Mr. and Mrs. Faraji nodded, satisfied. Leila smiled sweetly at Taemin, gratitude shining in her eyes. The rest of the evening passed peacefully, filled with stories and laughter. They spent the night in the Faraji home, as the weight of the past finally started to lift. A few days later, at the opening ceremony, Taemin stood on stage, addressing the gathered crowd. As he spoke, his eyes instinctively found the front row, where Leila and Nari sat. On one side were his parents, on the other, Leila's parents. His gaze locked with Leila's, and he knew they were thinking the same thing. For the first time, their families were together, not just in the same room, but celebrating a shared joy. They had done it. That night, back at the Faraji home, they tucked Nari into bed, then retreated to their own room, wrapped in each other's warmth. They lay in bed in companionable silence. Leila pressed her face against Taemin's chest, breathing him in. "I love you, Taemin," she whispered. His arms tightened around her. "I love you too, Leila." His voice was hoarse with emotion, his heart so full he thought it might burst. This woman, Leila, was his wife, his love, his home. After a brief pause, he suddenly chuckled, his voice turning sly. "Leila, I think Nari needs a sibling." Leila gasped before laughter bubbled from her lips. She barely had time to protest before he pulled her into a deep kiss and dimmed the lights.